Hey everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Joseph. I'm a training psychoanalytic psychotherapist, and I am here with a friend of mine, Matthew, who I have come to understand to be an INFP, according to Carl Jung's theory of types, and an Enneagram 4, and what I've come to understand to be related to the moving away pattern of Karen Horney. So here we are together to explore his personality and how he understands his own experience of health or unhealth, if he wants to explore that as well. So Matthew, thanks for being here. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm all good. How are you?
Doing really well. I'm excited to have this time together to explore your personality.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about what you like to do. What interests you? What do you notice? What captures your attention?
I would say I'm someone who enjoys kind of like writing and poetry, and which has kind of developed into kind of like a love of like songwriting. So playing the guitar, using the guitar to find poetry, if that makes sense, using the music and lyrics to sort of express myself. That's what I do quite a lot. I do a lot of photography when I can, because I feel like what I'm interested in is visual expression, but also like expressing yourself musically. And I read a lot. I did an English literature degree, so I'm interested in kind of like literature and English literature, even American literature, like Walt Whitman and people like that who I love and stuff. And that's pretty much it. I mean, I have a background in like acting and stuff. I did a lot of acting when I was younger. And maybe one day I'll do a bit more, but at the moment they're my kind of ways of expressing myself, if that makes sense.
Interesting. So you said maybe you'll do more acting. Is that something you desire?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so. I mean, it's a weird thing, because I did a lot of acting growing up. So like from like 7 to 18, I was really good, and I was in a couple of professional like theatrical productions in my local area in the UK, and was really quite good at it. But then obviously I ended up developing quite a lot of social anxiety, for several reasons, and it kind of stopped me in my tracks, if that makes sense. So between I sort of kind of went along with it, with the social anxiety, tried to sort of fight it and not let it dictate my life from like 16 years old to 18. And I tried to keep doing the stuff that I loved. But in that kind of period between like 14 and well, I'm 27 now, so between 14 years old and kind of like now, I kind of lost what I was really interested in, if that makes sense. Like, because I feel like that period can turn into a really good period where you can grow and you can flourish and you can make loads of progress with whatever you want to do creatively, or you can unfortunately get kind of hit by mental health issues, which can kind of stop you in your tracks and stuff. So now, like at 27, I'm starting to feel more like myself, for several reasons. And I'm feeling like I might go back to it eventually.
I find that immensely reassuring, this sense of feeling more like oneself. this to me is, I would argue that's kind of my passion, and really what I want to hear more about, from your unique perspective. So I'm wondering more about feeling more like yourself, and maybe even the history with not feeling like yourself, and the conflict and how you've managed it.
Yeah, it's a really hard thing, I feel, to be an INFP. I don't want to put people in a box, but let's talk about, because we're talking about the Enneagram and MBTI and stuff. Like, it's a difficult thing to be an INFP, I feel. To exist in the world and remain authentic to who you are and be true to yourself. I found because I feel, I'm not sure if it's statistically proven or not, but I feel INFPs and INFJs can kind of be vulnerable the most to mental health issues. Like, a lot of people that I know who are INFPs, they have struggled with a lot with like anxiety and stuff. So in terms of like not being yourself, that's a horrible feeling. Not living your life, but feeling detached from who you really are, for whatever reason. For my reason, it was developed from having bad skin in school. So then my confidence got knocked, and obviously I developed social anxiety and stuff, which I've overcome now, but it's taken obviously a long time to overcome it. And there's still a little bit of it there, but I find that makes me more compassionate to people, and it's taught me a lot to be compassionate and really be kind when you're going through life, because you don't know what anyone's going through. But in terms of being myself, like, am I really dark? Shall I turn the light on, or should I?
I don't see you that well, so yeah, maybe if you.
I'll turn the light
it's
on.
like, we don't have a ton of time, but as long as we can. Yeah, there we go.
Sorry.
A little more dynamic.
Sorry, there we go.
I love your window, by the way. It's captivating me over there.
Thank you. So I'm not sure what else to say really about that. I mean, when you're going through that period in life, like from 14 to 21, that's such an important time, isn't it?
It's huge.
It's a massive time. And when you're kind of someone who's had several things gone wrong internally, it's difficult. It's just really difficult to exist. And there's like this, for me, I had a lot of dissociation, a lot of detachment from my body. And that kind of was a lot of what I got. I had depersonalization and derealization and stuff like that, and it makes you feel very uncomfortable, obviously. Because you're like, who am I? You look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, I don't recognize that person.
Who am I? Who am I? I want to just kind of like interrupt for a second, because you're bringing up a constellation of themes, which is awesome. And I love hearing the constellation. What I hear is a sense of conflict around being able to be authentic, and then a sense of conflict around feeling, in some sense, detached from yourself, like a detachment, right? And even in these more difficult periods, it sounds like a feeling of really being even completely disconnected from reality itself. The disconnection from reality, the inability to test reality, as I understand it so far with this kind of personality structure, temperament, is actually kind of normal, which is interesting to consider, right? Healthy, artistic types, sensitive types, they actually want to be able to not be in reality safely, in a way. So they
I
are
think also,
more vulnerable to what I think you're thinking of here, which is the more extreme representations of like being unhealthy and stuff.
yeah, I think also like reality can be quite painful for
Okay.
for certain people. And I think maybe that's why we escape through art and we create stuff. Because we're an idealists, the world is such a messy, chaotic place if you observe it. And like I'm someone who's always observed life, you know, like and
Yes.
if you really look deep into life, depending on the angle that you're looking at, you can look at it in a very positive way, but also like I'm very sensitive to the horrible things that are going on and people's emotions. When I'm interacting with them, I can tell there's always something under the surface going on with people. But like ultimately, I'm observing things to understand more about the truth of life. Like it's this kind of like contradictory kind of like there's yeah.
It's so beautiful. I mean, I love it. I just admire it so immensely. I really do. It's a sense of what is morally true for you. Like it's a sense of gauging the other person's moral truth, their authenticity. It's like it's a feeling, but it's a judgment.
Yeah, it's not like a negative judgment.
Yeah.
I'm not judging. I'm not judging people. What I'm trying to do, like, I just feel like there's a really good quote by this writer, and he's like, "Every person's a variation of yourself," and like, I'm trying to, when I interact with people, I'm trying to interact on a personal level. I feel that's another big thing for INFPs. We see life in a personal way, but life is a very impersonal thing.
Yes.
In general, I would say, or it can be. You know, we have to work. People don't really necessarily care about you in work environments. But as INFPs, I think it's about care. We care so much about people and the world, and we want it to be a beautiful, happy place. So we want people to be healthy.
Absolutely.
But in that kind of like seeking and observing people or what's going on in the news, that we can't help but notice that there's so many things going wrong, and people are in a lot of pain.
So I want to ask you more direct. Of course, I know what you mean for sure. But I want to ask more directly, and you don't have to share specific memories, but I'm wondering, from a young age, even, have you always felt a sense of being easily overwhelmed by the world, specifically the world of other people, the social relationships, the feelings of others, and feeling maybe overstimulated, overwhelmed, that feeling of almost like hypersensitive? And that being,
I mean, no, I remember, I have a vivid memory when I was younger that I was hyper aware of the sky, and one night it was it was thunder. It was like a storm. I was scared of the thunder. I know children can get scared of things like that. I just have a memory of that, and that scared me, and it overwhelmed me, and it was like this horrible negative power above me, that just kind of freaked me out. In terms of when I was younger, I did like kind of escape situations and just go off on my own a lot, and I was in my own world. But I didn't always want to be where there were crowds of people. But today, I've spoken a lot to my doctor, and he's been like saying I'm probably slightly on the spectrum of autism, which explains why. I mean, it's either that or I'm just a very hypersensitive human being, because I can't really be in busy environments. I get, like you say, over stimulated, too many people and too many emotions and too many personalities.
This is kind of a meme right now in the modern culture. We're seeing mental health crisis in younger people. And there's a lot of people who are identifying more with being neurodivergent and having these autistic like, think of Asperger's type of disorder. But what I sense out of this is it's a way of rationally making sense out of their identity. Like, who am I? Well, here's a diagnostic criteria. Here's a thing. Oh, I can see myself in that a little bit. That makes me feel a little more validated, for my real feelings. My real feelings is really who I am. Like, I'm really the overwhelmed kid. Like, I'm the sensitive kid. I need to get away. Like, it's a sense of being seen and validated. And I would argue
difficult.
I would argue that that's the root of that theme.
It's difficult. Like, I remember, like, when I was in high school as well, I was very dissociated throughout high school. It was a very traumatic time, simply because I didn't really know anyone else in my school who was really like me. I was very different. I was very individual. I'm not sure if that's due to the INFP thing, being an individualist, or if it's kind of like an Asperger's thing, or if it's because I'm a hypersensitive person. But I wouldn't go to lunch with people. I would go to the music center and spend my lunches alone every day. Like, it was kind of like a protective thing because I had social anxiety, but also I needed to get away.
It's so funny. I don't want to interrupt your narrative, but there's so much similarity. It's freaking me out. Because I'm a 9.
Similarity with what?
I was very much involved socially, but very overwhelmed at times.
Right. Yeah.
Growing up.
Yeah.
And I would withdraw, and I went to the band room, the music rooms, the practice rooms. I would just go in there and just I was good. Or I'd be like in class, and I would just take the bathroom pass to just walk, to like get out. I had to get out.
It's getting a little respite, a little bit of respite just from
the need to just withdraw is such a fundamental strategy here. And I just can really resonate.
And it's difficult to figure that out as an adult. I'm obviously doing like a master's in psychology right now, but I'm not working. And part of the reason why I stroll to work is because I'm too sensitive to people's emotions. And in the past I've worked, but they've been quite overwhelming environments, and there were no places to escape. And that, for me, makes me feel trapped if I don't have.
I'm getting nervous just hearing about it right now.
Sorry.
I'm joking. I mean, I'm being honest. I'm trying to make lighthearted of the defense.
Okay.
The defense.
Okay. Yeah. So in terms of like, it's a beautiful thing, because once you are in a situation where you've managed to get away, you can focus on whatever books you're reading, or if you're writing a song, or if you want to do a drawing. That's a beautiful process. But it kind of impinges and gets in the way of like work life, like leading a normal life. Do you know what I mean?
It can. It absolutely can. There's a sense of that, I think, within everybody who shares this fundamental structure and personality. There's that sense of, and I really don't want to speak for you because you're saying it so beautifully, honestly. But the feeling is, I have to get away so that I can have a sense of really self, because I'm going to be swallowed up or destroyed by the other.
Yeah.
And that can get really out of hand. And I'm sure you've experienced this, and you've got your story. But the reality of I'm going to die, I am not going to exist if I don't do this? And having to manage that conflict.
Yeah, it's a very intense,
Mm-hmm.
it's an intense thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's very intense, and I think the whole thing with the self, and like, I'm not a hermit, but I spend an awful lot of time in my home because that's where I feel myself. Do you know what I mean? If I go out in the world, I can do that for, an afternoon or whatever, go into I live in Chester in the UK, so I can go into the city centre, go to a coffee shop with my sister and friend, and I can do that for a couple of hours. But after a while, it's too much. I feel like I'm not allowed to be myself, and it's also a little bit sad because I feel like the self is not truly known by other people, because the self that we have is the real true self, if you want to call it that, is when we're in our own space. And
for those who are listening, I want you to just be heard in this moment. Like, this is a real feeling, and it is sad, and this is why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. I want you to really be seen in that. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
No worries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I do know what you mean to a degree. I think it's important for me to emphasize that we have a different kind of personality, but we have a primary, what I think of as defense that's similar. The defenses. We have different defenses, if you've heard that kind of phraseology, to maintain our sense of self. We have to maintain that without losing it. So as we kind of talk about this, I'm wondering, there's so much I could go into, but I guess the curious thing for me would be your ability to fantasize and to see all the things that maybe you would really desire or like to do, but then the reality of not being able to maybe implement or do or act, that that distinction. I'm curious to know about how you can relate to that.
Yeah, I've had a lot of. I feel like I'm me as a person. I'm a dreamer. Like I have grand hopes deep down inside me, like to make something of my life. But then it's difficult because I'm not a practical person, and I'm not sure if I'm explaining this right, but it's difficult to make what you call fantasies a reality.
It is.
Definitely. And that's a very tragic part of my life, actually. Like, if you want to be truthful about it, I feel like a lot of INFPs would relate to that, because we have all these fantasies, or but how do we make it a reality? Like, you know what I mean? I'm not sure if I'm going along. I'm not sorry.
I do relate to a degree. From what I understand, this is related directly to the conflicts with the need to withdraw. As we feel the compulsion, meaning I don't think I'm safely able to do it. We have experiences in life, real experiences in our attachment relationships, and we really want to feel like we can withdraw safely, yet not be separated from mom and dad or whoever's available. And as we grow older, that's challenged by responsibilities, obligations, reality itself, right? Sometimes reality is really, like you said, first of all, people just aren't creative. So like, you can't have these kinds of heartfelt conversations with most people. That's just a harsh feeling. But but there's a sense of that. Yeah. I don't know. Was that
Yeah, it's a very
kind of answering?
it's a very like, yeah, it's just a tragic, the best word I can describe it is it's a tragic feeling. Like, I mean, I'm not saying this applies to all INFPs, but I feel I have a lot of potential, and I feel a lot of creative people have so much potential, but you know, mental health can get in the way. You know, reality, as you call it, like having obligations, having to make money, and all these different things. There's so many different variables, and it weighs you down. And I feel like growing up, I thought, you know, life and life is not not beautiful, but I always thought life was going to be this wonderful thing, but it's not, you know, it's challenging, like you say.
It's just facing the wound is sometimes really hard, because where are the other people who are willing to notice with me?
Definitely, yeah. I think
where are
that's
they?
a very
And that can be real, depending on, you know, people have different family systems, different life experiences, traumas, etc. I mean, we all have our own disconnection. And it's just, and I think the mature adult side of me wants to admit to the reality of the fact that while people can be more or less constitutionally sensitive and things, the environment really needs to be conducive with certain kinds of kids, basically, but even young adults.
So
I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah, it's sort of the same kind of thing about feeling unknown. And I feel like I wrote a song like yesterday, and I finished it today.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. That's
You.
incredible, though. Seriously, you finished. I mean,
no, and
that's awesome.
And it's about wanting a home.
Oh wow, okay.
And the way I write songs is I don't know what they're gonna be like, and I just kind of find a lyric, and then I'll write more lyrics, and then try and shape it a little bit, and then you go back to it and you're like, oh, that's what that means. Okay, so I was subconsciously trying to tell myself something, and in this particular song, it's about wanting a place to feel like I'm truly home. And I guess it's going off what you said, is it's wanting to feel understood. Where is a home? Where is the home where other people feel the same way, and we can just be together and be there for each other, if that makes sense.
It does.
And because I feel like my last memory of being in a home, a truly loving home, was probably when I was a kid. And then growing up, it just kind of, everything goes so fast, and you grow up, and then you've got challenges for yourself, and this is another thing, finding a partner as well, who's also as sensitive as you are.
Absolutely.
It's difficult,
or at the very least is interested enough in that, like not dismissive, you know, just, you know, there are people who are very practical people who are very conservative, I think is the word I would use, conservative people. And to somebody who's more withdrawn and creative, when they're not in the best place, that can feel like a dagger to the heart, like just that feeling of being sort of I think dismissed is a good word. I'm being dismissed in a sense. I need to restrict my feeling. I can't be as spontaneous with my feelings now. I have to restrict more. But a lot of times,
definitely a theme in my life where I feel like I can't really, I am restricted. I feel restricted. And I often feel dismissed. I feel like I'm having to be different versions of myself, which aren't really versions of myself, but they're versions of myself that I've kind of created to keep a semblance of like balance between relationships with certain people. And if I'm not trying to restrict my true feelings or who I really am with certain people, then I that in the past there's always been conflict there.
Okay, so you can see that
tension.
there literally was, like, in reality.
Yeah,
that's good. That's super mature. You know, that's a very honest.
Yeah. I have, you know, there's one artist who lives next door to my parents, who when I'm in his presence, I feel I can just be myself, you know.
That's nice.
And it's a really beautiful feeling. It's not to say that I don't value family or other friends, but I feel, I'm not sure if this, I don't want to speak for other INFPs, but there's only so many people who you feel you can not be restricted around, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, the way I've experienced it in my own life is there's such a, I mean, this is just what it is for me. I'm intense. I'm really intense. Like, like, this is what I like so intense that in some sense I hate to admit it, but I'm scared. I'm scared. So I get blind to what I think of as reality. That's the need to go into fantasy. That's the need to dissociate. All those defenses that are there to protect me, and I honor those defenses. And I want to do that in my work as a psychotherapist, is just uncovering and sort of peeling back those layers of the real value of my intensity, like the inherent goodness, the worthiness. Coming to terms with that is like the struggle in many ways.
Yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, that's what I've struggled with in my life growing up. I've always been too intense, and it applies to even you know, people who I fancied, who I liked. They found me too intense too quickly.
Okay.
I don't know if that's the same kind of thing. I think what you're saying is our inherent goodness. It's not. I'm not saying intense in a bad way.
Right.
It's
definitely
more,
not. Definitely not. This is where the conflict is, right? It's because it's necessary for health. The drives, the affects, the libido,
definitely.
the id, the spirit, the soul. Is like coming. It's like there.
Yeah, it's knowing where to put it and finding channels to put it, if that makes sense.
It does. It does.
So for me, it's like songwriting, putting all that sort of intense energy into a beautiful lyric and putting it onto paper and getting it out of you. And it's also like with photography, you're getting out of yourself and you're pushing out that sort of intensity to seek beauty and you know, the truth, like through a lens, and trying, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense for me. It does, but it doesn't. I'm just trying to emphasize that where you have similarity and differences, I have a ton of empathy. So I see you. It's like, what I'm hearing is something like there's a feeling associated with what I know to be good.
Yeah.
And I need to share it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It's not so cerebral. It's not so detached. There is a fantasy, but it's here. It's like here. It's in the body.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I'm not sure. I apologize if I misinterpreted the intensity thing.
I think that's
what you were saying.
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel like we've just got a lot of idealism, and we want things to be, the potential of life is kind of overwhelming,
Yeah,
if that makes
the way
sense.
I tend to phrase it, and this is like this with every person, which is really beautiful and humbling if you get to know everybody, because you're like, wow, I didn't
Mm.
realize I wasn't the center of the universe. I think that's a big part of it. But
Yeah,
coming to terms with the subjectivity, the intense
yeah,
subjectivity of your own internal life, the need for that, um, and
yeah,
then sort of being able to see other people uh,
yeah.
in a way that
I, I, I,
you can tolerate. You can
yeah,
tolerate. Yeah.
I, I think with I think growing up, it took a long time to get to know myself and know how I worked, which is what brought me to the MBTI and, finding out about being an INFP, and that really helped as well. But also, like, I kind of didn't, I lost my, I lost my ability to be compassionate and empathize
Oh wow.
in that process, growing up, trying to, I was just more focused on understanding myself, and it's a very hard thing to balance being someone who's inwardly focused and trying not to be self-absorbed, but also being empathetic, compassionate to other people.
I think this really
And
gets into our probably primary differences with the way we withdraw. Um, but yeah, I hear that. I think what I'm hearing is like there's such a need for intimacy and closeness, um,
definitely.
that is a wound for you. There's a wound of mourning. Like, why haven't I had that? Is like, what does that say about me? Um,
Yeah,
it's like
makes
that.
you feel like there's something wrong with you. But
Right, right.
I mean, the mature version of myself is trying to remind myself that, um, you know, it you're there isn't anything wrong with you. But it's difficult because then
I
your feelings
we only
are
have a
telling
minute.
you that you are
We only have
different.
a minute, but can I give like kind of like a interpretation? Um,
Sure.
yeah, a lot of what happens, what my understanding with the four characteristically is, it's that conflict around the need to be really appreciated and admired, um, and sort of like, how do I actually bridge that gap within real relationships? But there's also a conflict surrounding being what I think of as inauthentic in that process. So it's like you're being pulled in different directions. Here I am not being authentic again,
Yeah.
but like my self-image is I am. And that does breed a kind of narcissistic wound. And it's huge.
Mm.
It's a huge wound. So we only have like 30 seconds, but I want to let
I
everyone
wouldn't
know.
say I'm a narcissist, though, just to say that.
Absolutely not.
I
Well,
wouldn't
like,
say I'm,
yeah, yeah. But like you said, the self, I'm focusing on myself so much.
yeah,
See that? That's really what I'm referring to when I
sure,
talk
sure,
about
sure.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's such a loaded term. But yeah, for those who stuck around and watch, thank you for watching. We could go on forever. There's such chemistry here. So thank you so much for tuning in. And if you want to be a part of the series, you can email me and comment and all that good stuff. Thank you for being a part of the series, Matthew.